B'Shem Hashem na'aseh v'natzliach, Shiur Torah, Bruchim Habayim. We are back here, and BeEzrat Hashem, we are going to start a brand new series that I'm sure is going to invigorate every single listener that has ever heard of our lectures before. Is going to be have some I guess some memories of the past series from the beginning, but you'll see that there's a lot more new information. Tonight's shiur is, and this entire series is going to be for the Refuah Shlema for Rav Ephraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Avi Mori David ben Nesriya, Imi Morati Doris bat Jora, and all of Am Yisrael and all the righteous Noahites that continue to watch and learn with us, support our organization as much as they can, and most importantly, share these lectures with as many people as possible. The series that we're starting tonight is something that I don't believe has ever been done before, simply because the sefer that we're going to be learning is a relatively unknown sefer by one of the Gedolei Olam, Rav Elchonon Wasserman, Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh Livracha. Rav Elchonon Wasserman was one of the Talmidim Uvakim of the Chafetz Chaim, who was murdered in the Holocaust on Kiddush Hashem, and but a true Kiddush Hashem where literally as they were taking him and his Talmidim and the people that were with him, he was actually to go and kill all of them. Rav Elchonon Wasserman did not skip a beat from his world of Torah and literally taught all of the Talmidim over there how to die on Kiddush Hashem, how to sanctify HaKadosh Baruch Hu's glory and His name while dying. And this was documented firsthand by actually one of the survivors, Rav Ephraim Oshri, who says that he miraculously survived this whole Holocaust and that particular event itself. He was actually on the line itself, and he miraculously escaped in the last minute and was not caught and survived the rest of the Holocaust. To tell about that and many, many other extraordinary details of what happened during that awful time. And it's only fitting that we actually start this series on Rosh Chodesh. We start this series at a time where the Holocaust is being commemorated. We start the series as we see the world changing in such a fashion that it's no longer a far-fetched thought that never again statement that many people have made is for naught, because it looks like, chas v'shalom, we may be heading into another Holocaust in the very near future. With all of the antisemitism that has been celebrated and spread around the United States and the rest of the world, it's not a far-fetched idea. And the first series that we did from Rav Elchonon Wasserman was about 6 years ago. It's about 40 or so lectures. And anyone that watches that series or has one of these extraordinary USBs that we've given out, tens of thousands of these USBs around the world. We're still giving them out for anyone that wants to get some USBs for their community. You can go for free. You can go to kiruvstore.org or bhkiruv.org and get that and books and other things that our organization distributes for free. And even pays for the shipping if you're in the States or in Canada. But needless to say, this USB, if anyone's listening to it, if you watch the lectures on our channel for that series, that playlist called ERA of MaShiach, it's like watching the news today. It's like watching what's happen already being told to us nearly 90 years ago. And in fact, this Era of Mashiach series was telling us of everything that was happening before the Holocaust, answering the question that very few people ask when people focus on the question when they're not knowledgeable about Torah and don't have much emunah in HaShem. They ask, where was God during the Holocaust? Just like they ask now, where was God during October 7th? But of course, those that have dedicated their life to the Torah and to HaShem ask a different question, which is, where was Am Yisrael before the Holocaust? Because once you know where Am Yisrael was before the Holocaust, it will answer, where was God during the Holocaust? And in fact, even great sages like Rav Dessler has written about the fact that while many people like to assume that everyone that died in the Holocaust on Kiddush Hashem, unfortunately that's not correct. Because many of those that died heretics, died atheists, died idol worshippers and enemies of God. So certainly a person that is an idol worshipper or an enemy of God is not dying sanctifying God's name. If anything, it's the opposite. And even Rav Dessler wrote about it, which very few people know. And the point is that Rav Elchonon Wasserman actually told us about what was happening before the Holocaust and where was Am Yisrael before the Holocaust, preparing us with the words of the sages, including his Rav, the Chafetz Chaim, of what was going to happen as a result. And this ma'amar that we have, this short sefer that we have now, called Omer Ani Ma'asai LaMelech, based on a verse in Tehillim, where David HaMelech tells us, my work is for HaShem, for the king, which we'll explain further today. Rav Elchonon Wasserman goes a step further and tells us how to prepare ourselves for what follows, Ikvita de Meshicha, which is the war against Amalek. How to prepare ourselves in that war. And no, we're not talking about the different types of weapons that you have to use and whether you should get yourself a bunker in the mountains. No, we're not talking about any of that, but rather, how does a person prepare themselves for the times that we are facing? Now, if you look at what's happening right now, perhaps everyone has noticed the things that are happening in regards to the universities. And now you have the deal with Rutgers University, with the terrorists that infiltrated the place. And then it seems like things have calmed down a little bit in other places, but what most people don't realize, they haven't calmed down because everyone is in agreement, but rather because there's no point to protest because school is out. People that have been going to the university are on vacation now. More or less, everyone is on vacation, so there's no point to protest. Meaning that there's no saying whatsoever that the protests are not going to come back even more so, stronger, more dangerous, as soon as the school year begins again at these universities. And in fact, if the Rutgers University deal with the protesters is any indication, it certainly does look like things are going to get worse. But what I think most people don't realize is that everything that's been happening is actually what the prophet Ezekiel told us, which we learned from Rav Wasserman in that series, Era of MaShiach, in one of the lectures. I believe it was lecture number 14. And Rav Wasserman tells us that a Jew, regardless of what they do, cannot elect to not be a Jew. Even if they convert to idolatry, even if they marry and assimilate, even if they don't practice, whether they like it or not, God says, you were born a Jew, you will die a Jew. Wicked Jew, nonetheless, and you get punished for it, but there's no such thing as you becoming a Gentile. Now, the prophet says this clearly in such a fashion that it really puts things that are happening today into perspective, because this is all required dressing up for the series we are beginning today to really understand what's actually happening here. Because if you're going to fight the war of Amalek, first and foremost, you need to know where you stand. Secondly, you need to have a reason. You need to have a motivation. And while many people like to rebuke, tell other people that are wrong, very few actually know the real reason behind it. Very few actually know how to do it. In fact, very few people are aware of how to fight the war of Amalek, and in fact, who to fight against, who is the enemy. Certainly, if somebody's trying to kill you physically, that obviously confirms that they're an enemy. But not all enemies, and especially not the most dangerous ones, are trying to kill you physically. Now, the prophet Yechezkel warned us, Rabotai, in such a fashion that when you hear these words of the prophet, if you don't shake, you should check your pulse. You should truly check your pulse. And the prophet says as follows: for the sake of time, we will just strictly go to the English version of it. The prophet says in the name of God, in chapter 20, verse number 32, as for what enters your mind, it shall not be. As for what you say, that we will be like the nations, like the families of the land, to worship wood and stone, as I live, the word of the Lord HaShem, I swear that I will rule over you a strong hand, and with an outstretched arm, and with an outpoured wrath. I will take you out from the nations and gather you from the lands to which you are scattered, with a strong hand and with an outstretched arm and with an outpoured wrath. And I will bring you to the wilderness of the nations, and I will contend with you there, face to face, just as I contended with your forefathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt. So will I contend with you, the word of the Lord HaShem. I will make you pass under the rod, and bring you unto the bond of the covenant. I will separate from among you those who rebel, and those who transgress against me. I will take them out of the land of their sojourning, but they will not come to the soil of Israel. Then you will know that I am HaShem. Here you see, Rabotai Karim, a very clear statement that does not really require a lot of commentary in order for you to understand the basic meaning. And if that wasn't enough, a later prophet, Ezra, repeats the same concept. In chapter 9, first verse, when these matters were concluded, the officers approached me, saying, the people of Israel, the Kohanim and the Levites, have not kept themselves apart from the people of the lands, meaning the Gentiles, doing like the abominations of the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Jebusite, the Ammonite, the Moabite, and the Egyptians, and the Ammonite. For they have taken of their daughters in marriage for themselves and for their sons, and the sacred offspring of Israel have intermingled with the people of the land, meaning the Jews married non-Jews, and the hand of the officers of the chief has been foremost in their transgression. And Ezra says, when I heard this, I tore my garments and my cloak, tore my hair from my head and my beard, and I sat down in silence. And after he sits down in silence and mourning about the situation that was happening at the time, he says this to Am Yisrael. After all that has befallen us for our evil deeds and great guilt, yet you, our God, have withheld retribution to less than our iniquities deserve, and have granted us this remnant. Shall we again violate your commandments and intermarry with the people of these abominations? Surely you would become enraged with us until our destruction, without remnant or survivor. So here, Rabotai, Ezra Sofer sees the situation. He actually then rebukes the people, tells them that if they continue this, Hashem will destroy them. And then he, in essence, prays to Hashem, says that Hashem, I know that if we continue this, you're going to destroy us. Now, what does all of this have to do with the protests? What does all of this have to do with everything that's in play right now? You see, when people ask, where was God during the Holocaust? What they don't realize is that Am Yisrael was assimilating in such a fashion that in some places like Germany, there was over 90% assimilation, meaning 90% of Jews were marrying non-Jews, which is forbidden from the Torah. Whether she's a nice non-Jew or he's a nice non-Jew or not, if you're a Jew, you're not allowed to marry a non-Jew. Regardless of what you like, dislike, agree, disagree, it's irrelevant. These are the rules that your Creator made. When people ignore this in the past, at the time of Ezra, at the time of Yecheskel, at the time of Isaiah, all of these different prophets, Hashem sent them multiple warnings before he punished them, but ultimately, since they didn't listen, he eventually brought a Holocaust. The Holocaust of the destruction of the first Bet HaMikdash, the first temple, the Holocaust of the second Bet HaMikdash, the Holocaust that have been happening throughout the last couple of thousand years that we've been in the exile. And he keeps repeating, telling us that what you think, that you can just simply ignore the Torah, ignore the fact that Judaism has rules, ignore the Torah that your Creator is the one that runs the world and not your bank account, not your friends, not your boss, not your company, not your ideas. Only the Creator runs the world. And you still think that you can just simply ignore all of that history, all of those facts, all of that reality, and assimilate and change the Torah of truth into something that is an elective intellectual stimulation. This will not be. God tells the prophet Yecheskel, this will not be. Your extraordinary efforts to assimilate, to strive to become doctors, lawyers, and accountants, and investment bankers, and Hollywood stars, and all types of other professions rather than being a kosher Jew first that follows the Torah. And then that means having a kosher profession, regardless of what that is. But you decided to make your profession number one. You decided to make your desires number one. You decided to make your lusts number one. You decided to make my Torah not only not number one, but not even part of the equation, to such an extent that you violate Shabbat, you intermarry, you act immoral. Ayolotiyeh. This will not last long. This will not be forever. Eventually, I'm going to show you who's God. And when it's done on an individual level, Hashem has a lot of patience, but eventually it comes at some point during that person's life where havoc strikes. And if it's not in this world, then it's the next. But when it comes on a national level, when the Jewish nation acts out against the Creator, Hashem has even more patience. He could literally wait several generations to see if there's a change, to see if more people do tshuva and change and come back to Him. But eventually, when the cup of sins and desecration of His name fills up, Hashem brings a Holocaust. But not before He crushes the ideology of all of those that went against Him, to show them that everything that they did, they didn't even end up profiting from it. And Rav Wasserman told us that the people that will suffer the most at the time of Mashiach, when He arrives, are those people that not only did not do tshuva, but also were rich, because at least they had a tool that was something that would allow them to help publicize Torah, help take care of many of the sins that they've made by helping other people do mitzvot. And they didn't even use that tool. And he was literally telling us that the tragedy was an ideological tragedy, but most people didn't realize it until it was too late. The same thing is happening as we speak. While all of these colleges are having protests, what very few are not realizing is that this is HaKadosh Baruch Hu destroying the ideology of all of His children that bet their lives on joining and assimilating into the system, making money, making a profession, making everything else their priority. Because just like that, everything changed. You've spent your whole life studying really hard, doing everything you can so you could get accepted to that Ivy League university, so one day you could become an executive, a professional, and you finally got into that university. And your parents had the money to pay for it, or the bank was stupid enough to lend you $1 million pretty much so you could attend this university without having any way whatsoever of paying it back in the next 30 years. But nonetheless, you got the money together. You literally had a miracle happen. You were able to not only get accepted after studying endlessly, or playing sports, or doing all types of things to get scholarships, so you could finally get to that university, so you can get to become one of those people that throws the hat in the air in graduation and has on the resume that you are a graduate of Columbia, you are a graduate of Harvard, you are a graduate of Gehenom, you're a graduate of whatever it is. You are excited for that day. When you went to college that first day and you saw the dorm, and you saw the field, you saw all the buildings, the monstrosity, huge campuses. And everyone looks friendly, and everyone's smiling at you. You thought, that's it. I'm on my way. I made it. Look how much I've done in my 18, 19, 20 years of life. I'm at Ivy League University. I'm on my way to being the best doctor in the world, the richest investment banker in the world, the top hedge fund manager in the world. I'm on my way because of my efforts, because of my doings. And And just like that, it's all gone. Because regardless of what's happening as we speak right now with the vacation being, everyone knows university life for Jews will never be the same. If you go to one of these campuses, you are simply risking your life, because times will only deteriorate from here. They will not improve. History is our best proof of that. And not just Jewish history, world history. The moment that the campuses had outside protesters, as well as professors join the protest, support the protest, you realize this is not a problem with a few students. This is a systemic issue beyond the scope of our imagination. This is literally the divine hand destroying the ideology that you have had for those 20 years of your life. And if you thought your situation is bad, just imagine how terrible it is for your parents who have had that ideology for much longer than you, because they're the ones that raised you with that type of education, that you have to make school number one, and you have to make your studies or your sports or your whatever activity you were doing to get a scholarship, and you have to attend the best Ivy League school and the best university, and you have to get a degree, and you have to get another degree, and we're going to work day and night to make sure that we can pay for that degree, even though your father can barely, breathe because he works so much, and even though your mother can barely breathe because she works so much, we're going to save all of our money so you can go to that best school. You and your brother and your other brother and your sister and even the dog and whoever can go to the university, and you can get that degree, because that degree, it means everything. And now, those very same parents, those very same Jewish parents, are telling their kids, honey, maybe we should consider taking an online school. Perhaps maybe you should just skip the whole thing and just work with your father. He'll get you a job at his company. He'll get you a job at wherever. Why do you need to go to that campus? No, come on, I want to be one of the protesters. Protesters? When was the last time you ever saw a Jewish protest win against the Gentiles in history? Don't look. It never happened. It never happened. Why? Because this is all happening as a result of the divine hand to destroy the ideology of assimilation. You made the nations, the world, the system, your priority. Hashem says, before I show you what's going to happen with that final war, I first want to show you how worthless that ideology was, because when you bet everything on it, you thought that you can't lose because you work hard. So how can you possibly lose by working hard and going to university? How can you possibly lose if you save all your money and you invest it into these types of studies? Until you realize, wait, I just paid $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, and it's all gone. It's all lost. Why? I don't feel safe to go back to university. I don't feel safe to go back to that particular school. And in fact, even if I end up getting a degree, that dream of having that degree, that school on my resume, is no longer a valid dream. Maybe I should choose a different profession. Maybe I don't even need this type of profession. When you thought you couldn't lose because of so much of your hard work, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Rabot machshavot belev ish ve'etzat Hashem itakum. Many ideas are in the hearts of man, but only the will of Hashem is what will be. Now, this is what's happening right now. Many Jewish people that felt safe in America, felt safe in England, felt safe in Germany, felt safe in different parts around the world, no longer feel safe. Even in Israel, many don't feel safe. Why? Anti-Semitism is literally everywhere. And the only ones that feel safe are the ones that will always feel safe and have always felt safe, which are the ones that are glued to HaShem. But unfortunately, that's not enough people. Not every religious person feels safe. Not every religious person is as glued to HaShem as another. One of the examples, Rabotai Karim, of the benefits of having the right ideology is exemplified to a very high extent by one of the Gdolei Ador of the previous generation during the time of the Holocaust, Rav Moshe Schneider. Rav Moshe Schneider was one of the Gdolei Ador, one of the giants. Just so you have an understanding, the current Gdolei Ador, Rav Sternbach, was his Talmid. Rav Sternbach was his Talmid. Rav Schneider, during the time of the war, they were fleeing from place to place. They ended up in London. And of course, what do you do when you're a Jew that's dedicated to Torah? You study Torah. So the Rav in his yeshiva, all of his students, young guys, 15, 16, 17 years old, are studying Torah day and night. Even though there's a war, even though there's bombs, even though there is literally dead bodies in different places and threats of destruction of London at any given time, they continued being dedicated to the Torah with complete emunah. One day, the government comes to them and says to them, we see you have hundreds of young men over here. We need help with the war. And even if you don't want to be fighters, none of you guys look exactly like you're fit for fighting, but we could still use your help in the weapons factories. You could help us manufacture weapons, work in the factory, each one. You have hundreds of boys over here. All of you need to come and join the efforts. As these officers are telling the Rav this, the Rav steps away from them. He goes on the podium, gets the attention of all hundreds of Bachurim that are there, Rav Sternbach among them, and he says this: we are going to sacrifice our lives for the sake of the Torah, and under no condition is any of us going to join this war efforts as a soldier, because we are already soldiers of God as we speak, and this is how we fight the war. This is how we contribute. When the officers heard this, they weren't exactly intimidated by the rabbi. They didn't actually understand what Torah is. What are these people doing, studying all day? But they saw that he's saying things. He's telling all of these young people not to join the war. They said, oh, this guy is acting against the government. They did an investigation on him and they concluded, you are acting against the government's interest, inciting people not to help the government. You have to leave the country. They sent him a notice of kicking him out of the country. As this notice came, they gave the notice to the chief rabbi of England at the time, Rav Yosef Tzvi Hiltz. Rav Yosef Tzvi got this, and he says to them, listen, this is a serious notice. To make this go away, I have to at least compromise with the government. So give me two guys that are going to come to the factory and work. At least a couple of guys are going to come work. And we can show them, look, it's really, the rabbi is not inciting anybody not to join. Because look, a couple of guys already started coming. Rav Schneider says to him, absolutely not. Not even one of my Talmidim is going to go to that factory. They're all going to be in a Torah factory, learning Torah. When Rav Yosef Tzvi heard this, he realized there's simply no compromising with the Rav. He went to the government and he said to them, listen, it's not the Rav that doesn't want to send the kids there. The kids themselves, they don't want to come. The government couldn't understand this. Why would they not want to come? Their lives are also at risk, according to us. So we're going to do an investigation, even though there's a war, even though there's bombings, even though there's all this stuff happening right now. They're going to do an investigation on every one of these students and interview every single one of them to get to see what the truth is. And they brought each one after another to the government office to interview them. And one time, Rav Sternbach tells this. He was on the line, and the guy that was ahead of him, that was in the office being interviewed, his name was Zaltzman. And the officer telling Zaltzman, Zalman, we know you're 17 years old. Your parents are in Poland. Germany is looking to destroy Poland right now. If you don't help us manufacture these weapons, you're not only risking your life, but most likely you're going to be contributing to the death of your parents. Zalman says to them, I don't have the same conclusion as you. This is a 17-year-old kid. And he speaks with complete emunah in HaShem. He says to them, I don't have the same conclusion as you. My conclusion is different. He said, you see, I know my parents are in Poland, and I haven't seen them in a few years. But I also know that the merit of the Torah that I'm learning right now is what's keeping them alive. And if I don't study Torah, if I leave the Torah, I lose that merit, and then they're going to die. So thank you for strengthening me and reminding me of another reason of why I have to learn Torah. Officers were baffled and said, okay, listen, we don't really understand this, what you're talking about here, how you arrived at that, but listen. Torah or not Torah, you need to eat. You know, right now, we're at war. We have to preserve our resources as a government. We're not going to just continue giving to whoever, whenever. We're only going to give to people that are helping us. If you don't help us, we're not going to give any financial assistance to you or to the yeshiva or anything else. So you'll simply starve to death. Zalman says, I don't have the same conclusion as you. My conclusion is different. You see, I believe with 100% faith in the Creator of the world that He, and only He, is responsible for the food that I eat. And no one can feed me except Him. Now, the soldiers are getting frustrated, but now they go for the killer. Listen to this, Salman. Listen. In your world, you're saying you need to study. What if the whole world studied? All of you just continue studying and everybody else studied. Then the Nazis are going to win. The Nazis are going to destroy the world. How is that going to work? How does that make any sense? If we take all the soldiers and everybody studies, then the world will be destroyed. Zalman says to them, I don't have the same conclusion as you. He said, you see, if we all study Torah, we all get closer to HaShem, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Creator of the world, is going to save us, just like He saved us from the Egyptians, and from any enemy that we ever had when we were doing His will. Just like He took us out of Egypt and turned us from being slaves into the masters, this is what He would do now. At this point, the soldiers completely got frustrated with him, kicked him out, and said, okay, we got to go to some normal person. But then the next Talmid did the same exact thing. And the next Talmid did the same exact thing. One after another, each one of these Torah students gave the soldiers, the non-Jewish soldiers, a shiur about emunah, bitachon, believing in God. Only God can help you. No, nothing else. At the end of it all, everybody gave the same answer. And the government said, we're going to issue a decision on Friday of a specific date. Rav Moshe Schneider told the Talmidim that Friday that everyone has to take upon themselves a fast, pray, read Tehillim the whole day, learn Torah, till the decision comes. Beg for HaShem to have mercy on us and bring us to salvation. All of the Talmidim are praying, are fasting, are cleaving to HaShem, rededicating themselves to HaShem. The letter comes in, they bring it to the Rav, and the Rav reads it. The government has decided to release all of the students of this yeshiva from the army forever. Why? Second notice. The government has decided to cancel the deportation of Rabbi Moshe Schneider. Why? After careful analysis, the letter reads, after careful analysis of interviewing all of these young men, we were enlightened to discover that all of these kids, all of these young men, are mentally ill. And this is not a scholarship institution, but rather a humanitarian organization that is helping them heal. And this Rabbi Moshe Schneider is an extraordinary humanitarian that is volunteering to help all of them. And we are very grateful to have such a person and such an institution that is taking care of all of these young men. Well, who else would do it? So aside from relieving them from any type of obligation for serving in the army, we are actually going to support this organization by giving them further funding so they have everything that they need in order to continue healing. Because according to the Gentiles that were focused on the war of cannons, believing in God being your only way to survive in this world is a mental illness. Whereas to us Jewish people, it's the only way. And shortly thereafter, they send a big check, literally extraordinary amount of money, to the yeshiva. Because they think that they're helping a humanitarian organization. They even send letters of praise to the rabbi for thanking him for what he's doing. And instead of taking this money, the rabbi puts it back in another envelope and returns this money to the government, saying we will not take any money from the government. And to his students he says, we are not going to fund our Torah learning with the money of idol worshippers. We will rely on the one and only God to feed us, and no one else. When the government received this money, they were even more enamored by Rav Moshe Schneider and sent literally more letters of praise of look at this extraordinary patriot who not only helps in this humanitarian cause, but also cares enough about the government and the country at the time of its difficulty that he will not even ask for any resources like everyone else. At this time, Rav Moshe Schneider told all of his Talmidim, Zeh HaShem, Nagila v'nismecha bo. This is God. Let us celebrate and be joyful. What is this is God? He says this is the hand of God that allowed us to continue learning despite the odds, despite the rationale of the secular world, despite the logic, despite anything else that anyone may say. He not only allowed us to continue learning Torah, but we survived. We survived the trials, the tribulations, and after the war, there was more teachings to show each one of these Talmidim how fortunate and blessed each was to survive the war in general, while so many millions died. Rabotai Yikarim, when a person understands that story, they will understand more of the reason behind why Rav Elchonon Wasserman wrote this particular writing called Omer Ani Ma'asai Lamelech. This was not published as a separate book, but rather as part of the commentary that the Rav made on the tractate of Yevamot. And this is something to be found at the end of the tractate. Now, if a person looks at things purely from a secular perspective, not one single word that I said would make sense to them. Because, simply put, the average person is relying on their own logic, their own wherewithal. And when you say that you're going to learn Torah, you're going to do tshuva, and that's going to save you, it doesn't make sense to most people, because they'll say, wait, how is it going to save you from the rocket that's on the way? How is it going to save you from an atomic bomb? How is it going to save you from anti-Semitism? And this is the reason why, Rabotai, this series is as critical as any other series you're ever going to watch in your life, because we are in the end of times. And when you're in the end of times, you need to know not only what's going on, but how to interpret it. You see, many people spend an exorbitant amount of time watching the news. And the problem is, as the Gemara says, "Ayotze mitameh tameh." Anything that is impure only creates impure. And the overwhelming majority of all news that's out there is not only lashon hara, is not only gossip and false, but also full of heresy. Literally one heretical comment after another, completely against God in every single aspect without even realizing it. Where the average news network, average journalist out there is violating every principle of Jewish faith you can possibly imagine. And I'm not talking about that it's a problem just for them, it's a problem for the listener. So if you are a Jew listening to the news, you're in essence listening to heresy, to things that are against every principle of Jewish faith. Even if you listen to financial news and you don't know how to interpret things according to the Torah, you are actually subjecting yourself to another form of heresy. And the reason why is because when the anchors on CNBC or Bloomberg or any other type of financial network are reporting the news, what are they reporting? They're reporting we have the price of oil, the price of cotton, the price of gold, the price of whatever other good is there, or stock, or any type of commodity, whatever it is, the price increased. The price decreased. Oh, Johnny, tell us, why did the price of oil decrease? Well, you know, because there was 100,000 extra barrels produced in the last month, and therefore, this is actually creating an oversaturation in the market. Oh, well, Steve, last month, there was, a shortage. So how do you explain that, where the prices didn't necessarily go up as much as we thought? Well, Steve, that's because last month there was a threat of war, and everyone was concerned that if Iran joins the war at full force, that's going to create a shortage in the market. And then we're going to have to rely on Venezuela, which is obviously a problem. We're going to have to rely on Saudi Arabia, which is not a problem, which we have to rely on Russia. We have to rely on this. And they're going to give you all types of mumbo-jumbo about why they think the price of oil went up or went down, and why gold went up and went down, and why the stock went up and went down. But the truth is, the only reason why anything goes up or anything goes down is because HaKadosh Baruch Hu willed it. That is Da'at Torah. That is the opinion of the Torah. The only reason why it goes up or it goes down is because God allowed it to do so. God willed it to do so. It's not because of supply and demand. It is not because there's a war. It is not because there's peace. It is not because, there is a saturation in the market or a shortage in the market. All of those things are completely irrelevant. The reason why anything happens is because God allows it to do. Now, how does the Jewish world that lives according to the Torah look at such things? We don't have to look very far. Only about 1,600 years. We look at the Talmud Bavli, Masechet Gittin, page 57a. Tells us what happened at the time that the Torah was priority number one. And the Jewish world was based on Torah. In a community with thousands upon thousands of Jews that appreciated the Torah, that had literally the Torah as the law. There was one time a price increase in the price of wheat, where instead of, let's just say, for argument's sake, $40 for a pound or a kilogram, instead of it being 40 kilogram for, let's say, $1, it ended up being 39 kilograms for $1. Now, everyone that wants to buy some of this product, some of the wheat, that has $1, is used to getting 40 kilograms of it. But now, no one wants to sell 40 kilograms of it for $1. They want to sell 39. Now, is that, according to the market that we have in the world today, is that a big deal? No. You see that type of price appreciation and decline every day. Some things much, much more. Some things could literally have 20-30% volatility, swings on a day-to-day basis. Worthless assets like Bitcoin and all types of cryptocurrency that are literally a public abuse of logic, of intellect, and the financial system at large, have 20-30% fluctuations for absolutely no reason, just like there's absolutely no reason for them to be worth even $1. Needless to say, $60,000. But nonetheless, the market is the market. If something goes up 1% or 2% or 5% or 10%, it's not a big deal. So here, if you see that something has appreciated in price, where there's, in essence, an inflation in the price, things are more expensive by just one more dollar, it's not really that big of a deal. But as soon as this happened, the rabbis did an investigation. Why did the price go up? And they found out why. The reason was they found out that a man and his son committed a heinous immorality crime with a young woman on Yom Kippur. They brought them to the Bet Din. Witnesses testified, this is what they saw, this is who they warned. They ignored it. And they received the death penalty. They got stoned. And at that moment, the Gemara says, after these two spiritual criminals and otherwise got the death penalty, the price went back to 40. The price went back to 40. But what does one thing have to do with the other? Says the Ben Ish Chai, Rabbi Yosef Chaim. He says to us in Parashat Pinchas, it's well known that immorality hurts the blessing of Parnassah for Am Yisrael more than anything else. When there is immorality among the Jewish people, when there is immorality in the way they behave, in the way that they dress, when there is adultery, when there is promiscuity, when there is wasting seed, when all of this type of pornography becomes standard in many households, certainly this is the immorality that the Torah forbids. And the Ben Ish Chai says, it's well known that immorality hurts the blessing of Parnassah for Am Yisrael more than any other crime in the Torah. As we learn from Shlomo HaMelech in the book of Proverbs, chapter 6, verse number 26, Shlomo HaMelech says, Ki be'ad isha zona ad kikar lechem ve'eshet ish nefesh shekera tatsud. Because for the sake of a licentious woman, a promiscuous woman, a zonah, one may beg for a loaf of bread. An adulterous woman can ensnare a precious soul. A person doesn't realize, says the Ben Ish Chai, that here Shlomo HaMelech is teaching us znut, promiscuity, licentiousness, hurts the lechem, hurts the bread, the parnassah. It hurts it. And even if a person says, yeah, but I was keeping Shabbat, and I was keeping this, and I was keeping that, and only one time I went to the club, only one time I, went with this girl, and only one time I went with this guy. Says Shlomo HaMelech, an adulterous woman can ensnare a precious soul, meaning even if you were religious and you did everything good, but you fell that one time can cause collateral damage, not just on yourself, but the whole community could get hurt. And Shlomo HaMelech continues and says, can a man walk on coals without his feet being scorched? So is one who consorts with his friend's wife. Anyone who touches her will not be exonerated. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the creator of all creation, will simply not let immorality go. To him, it's the bottom line of everything. It's the difference between us and animals. And that's what it says in this week's parasha, Parashat Kedoshim. Kedoshim tiyu ki kadosh ani. You be holy because I am holy. And Rashi says over there, any place that you see modesty, you will see holiness. any place that you see immodesty, immorality, you will see unholiness. You'll see disaster. And the Ben Ish Chai continues and says that many people think, our grandparents, they used to have life easier. Or people today will say, my grandparents used to live off of, this much or that much. The truth is, our grandparents used to be able to take 20 to 30 salaries and buy a house with it. If they saved 20 to 30 salaries, they would be able to use that money and buy a house. Today, you have to save 200 to 300 salaries to buy a house. Now people say, that's because, it's inflation. Because real estate prices went up. Because things are much more developed and much fancier. And there's less room. And there's less this. Nonsense. All of those statements are complete heresy in the Torah. Why did prices go up? Because of the immorality in the world. In fact, the religious world, the Jewish religious world, is suffering a new problem that many people are bringing up in recent years, which is a problem of consumerism, where people literally are overspending and living beyond their means to the extent where they're literally getting into financial debt, financial holes that they can never come out of without a miracle. Or better yet, they're putting themselves in such a position that even if they're making a substantial living, a couple of $100,000 a year, they're still living paycheck to paycheck somehow. Why? Because everyone is trying to keep up with the Joneses. It's not enough to have a house anymore. It has to be $1 million house. It's not enough to have $1 million house in that community anymore. Because David down the street, he got an extension to the house. He got another floor to the house. So now his house is worth $1.7 million. So now you have to add an extension to your house. And now once you add an extension to your house, Steve has to add an extension to his house, even though all of his kids have already left the house. And it's only him and his wife in the house. He's going to get an extension to the house because he doesn't want to be the guy that's left behind with no extension on the house. So he's going to spend a few $100,000 that he doesn't have and borrow it from the bank to get an extension on the house. And he has to get a new car. Why? Because the next door neighbor got a new car. And how could I have the old 3-year-old car still? It's old already. It's 3 years old. I got to get a new car. Yeah, but returning that car now early is going to cost you a fine. You're wasting even more money. Yeah, but it's okay because I need to have a new car. And I need to have a new this. And I need to have a new that. And consumerism is literally destroying the community. In the past, you were able to get a young man and a young woman to get married without really too much. Why? Simple. You're a young man. She's a woman. You guys want to get married. Yeah, but she has kids. I don't have any kids. Exactly. That's perfect. You don't have any kids. She has kids. She needs help. So she's a perfect match for you. Today, no, come on. How can I do it? If she has kids, Ben, I'm going to pay for it. Maybe I want to have my this and my that. Or if you are single and she's single and by some miracle you cross paths and you actually like each other and you want to get married, it's not enough anymore. Why? Because you have to have the right portfolio to get married now. You have to have the right portfolio. Why? Listen, if we're going to get married, whose parents are going to buy the house? Whose parents are going to give us money to live for the first year? Whose parents are going to pay for the wedding? Whose parents are going to get gifts? Wait, your parents only give the watch? No. My parents, give much more than the watch this. And you have to literally have an argument between the families about who's going to give what. You have to be a millionaire just to get the kids to get married. All they need is to get married. But they need to be millionaires now. This consumerism is a curse. It's not a happenstance. It's not a happenstance. The fact that you need a few $100,000 a year in some communities to live a normal life where you could send your kids to yeshiva, that now, even though the yeshiva itself hasn't changed, in 30 years, nothing has changed. It's the same structure, it's the same teachers, it's the same books, it's the same everything, and maybe once in a while they got something renewed, but the cost of sending the kid to yeshiva has gone up from a few $100s to now $1,500 to $2,000 a month. If you have 5 kids going to yeshiva, you literally need $100,000 a year just to have your kids receive a Torah education. Now, of course, somebody will say, yeah, but they give a discount. What discount are they giving for you? What discount? If you make the money, there's no discount. And whatever discount you're getting is minimal. You still need $60,000, $70,000 to send the kids to learn Torah, to be a Jew. And what's changed so much? What, is the air more expensive? Because it's certainly not the teachers. The teachers are still barely making any money. You're not going to find any rabbi in a yeshiva making hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're not seeing any Rebbitzins taking home $300,000, $400,000 a year. Like literally, she has 20 students. Between our students, literally, they're bringing in $100,000 a month in fees. No one's paying that teacher $100,000 a month or even $100,000 a year. But yet, we all have to do it. We have to fight tooth and nail to make sure that we send our kids to yeshiva, even if it costs every penny that we have. But the reality is, this consumerism that we're living in right now is a curse. It's a curse. Inside the blessing of having the money and the wherewithal to pay for some of these things, despite the fact that there are still many people struggling, many people poor in the Jewish community, in America, in Israel, all over the world. We fed over 10,000 people that didn't have food to eat for Pesach. 4,000 or 5,000 for Purim. And that was not even scratching the surface of how many poor people actually needed. That's just simply all we could do. Over 10,000 people had to have money to literally eat for Pesach. Baruch Hashem, we're able to help at least that. At the same time, there are literally people that are making 100, 200, 400,000 a month, but they're also struggling. A different struggle, though. Why? It's a curse everywhere. Why? Why is it a curse everywhere? Says the Ben Ish Chai. Look at what the Gemara in Masechet Gittin said on page 57. The price of the goods that people need didn't change because of the economy. It didn't change because of the market. It didn't change because of supply and demand. It changed because of immorality. Recently, there was a report that came out that said that in Israel, milk costs somewhere around $2.50, 8 shekels. But in Germany, you can buy 6 times the amount for just double the price, about 18 shekels. So people say, whoa, how come it's so much more expensive in Israel? We produce milk. Why would it be more expensive? We're not importing milk. It's the land of milk and honey, for heaven's sake. It should be cheaper. It's like in Saudi Arabia, a gallon of fuel for your car is like 10 cents. Why? They produce it. In Israel, the same amount is almost $20 because they have to buy it from somewhere else, import it. But milk should be the cheapest thing in the world. It's the land of milk and honey. No, it's even more expensive than Germany. Why? Why is it more expensive than Germany? It's because, my dear Jewish people, it's because when the non-Jewish people in Germany, which is the majority of Germany, is not Jewish. There are some Jews there. There are some Jews everywhere. even though there's only about 20 million Jews in the world, there's literally some Jews everywhere. That's the blessing of HaShem literally telling us that we are literally the chosen people. We're literally everywhere. But there's very few of us if you compare us to other nations. But if you look at how many Jews are in America versus non-Jews, we're but a fraction. Almost 400 million people in America. What do we have? 6 million Jews. We're not even 2% of the population. We're not even 2% of the population. In Germany, it's even smaller numbers. In England, it's even smaller numbers. Much smaller numbers. So even though there's some Jews in Germany, even though there's some Jews in London, even though there's some Jews in Australia, the majority of those people that live in those countries are non-Jews. And when the non-Jews walk around with tank tops and immorality and immodesty, certainly God doesn't like it. But it certainly does not make the same level of spiritual damage in the heavens as when a Jewish woman walks around not modest in the land of Israel. When a Jewish woman walks around immodest in the land of Israel, or when a Jewish man commits any type of immorality in the land of Israel, or in the Jewish community in Florida, in New York, in Los Angeles, in Australia, Melbourne, all of these different companies, when that Jew that's in that Jewish community commits any type of immorality, they may not realize it, but the spiritual damage that they're causing themselves and the community is going to be felt by everyone. You walked around without any sleeves. You went to a place you're forbidden to go to. You did all types of acts of immorality. You don't think it's a big deal because you live in 2024? Well, next time you'll go to the store, don't be surprised if the price of your groceries goes up by 4 or 5 or 6%. And it's not because of the economy. Don't be surprised if you pay 20% more for milk than your non-Jewish friend is in his community. Don't be surprised if every single kosher product on Walmart, not just the kosher section, but any product that's kosher in Walmart, it was just reported to me today, is 30% more expensive or more than any product that's not kosher. To actually monitor the kashrut is not cheap, but it's not that much more expensive. It's not 30% more expensive on every type of product. This is part of the curse. Because your daughter is walking around immodest, because your wife forgot to put clothes on the way out, because your son is watching all types of inappropriate things on the internet. That's why you have prices going higher. Now the Baal Shem Tov said in Parashat Lech Lecha, when a person grabs the wrong coin out of their pocket, the Gemara says that's a sort of kaparat avanot, like some type of a eraser of the sin. But what erasing? What is this kapara? What is this kapara? The Baal Shem Tov says, no, it's not erasing any sin. When you grab the wrong coin out of your pocket, it's not erasing any sin. You know what it is? What it means by kaparat avonot? Because what sin could you possibly erase by grabbing the wrong coin out of your pocket? He says, you know what the Gemara is telling us here? When you grab the wrong coin out of your pocket, or something drops out of your hand, or you have any type of minimal thing happen to you that's just annoying, like you just put on the shoes, but you realize you put on the wrong shoe because you had the same shoe in 2 colors and you put on the wrong shoe. Or you wore the wrong pants. Or you forgot your keys in the house and you already went outside to the car. Or all types of annoying things that are not really a big deal. It's not a disease or anything. It's just annoying. Do you know what that is, says the Baal Shem Tov? That is HaKadosh Baruch Hu telling you, you have some sins right now. and you're on my target. You're on my target. You better do tshuva before it becomes a real kapara. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling us, says the Baal Shem Tov. David HaMelech Kodesh Kodeshim, says in Tehillim, Omer ani ma'asai lamelech, my work is for the king. And Rav Elchonon Wasserman says, this is going to be the name of the instruction manual for the war against Amalek. Why? Why out of all the things in the world do you call this an instruction set for the times that we're in? And the name of it is that all of my work is for the king. What does it mean? Why does Rav Wasserman, who lived to tell us what the Jewish people were doing before the Holocaust, who lived to give us a instruction set we did not even know exist until recently, about what to do before the end, how to fight Amalek, who died on Kiddush Hashem. Why did he write that this verse from Psalm number 45, verse 2, my work is for the king? What's the connection? What's the connection of the end of times and the war against Amalek, and that my work is for the king? What's the connection? What's the connection between the two, Rabotai? Well, you see, Rabotai, as I said before, one of the most important things that a person needs to do in order to survive the war against Amalek that we are in as we speak is first identify where we stand. We've identified where we stand until now. The antisemitism, the inflation, just like as prophesied in the Gemara in Masechet Sotah and Masechet Sanhedrin, the prices will go sky high. This is just the beginning of what's happening. It's literally part of the curse, but we also know the reason, as the Ben Ish Chai told us and the Gemara told us. So we need to know where we stand. But now, we need to know the next step. The next step is, why are we fighting? Why? What is going to motivate me to fight against Amalek? You're going to say, survive. What are you, a soldier? Is everybody that's watching me soldiers all of a sudden? You're all going to go to war? You all have Uzis? You all have machine guns in your houses? No. The war against Amalek has nothing to do with guns. That's just a small part of the war. And don't worry, Mashiach's going to fight that one. When Mashiach comes, he's going to destroy the evil, the wicked, the enemy, with simple words. Not a single shot will be fired by the Mashiach. Not even a bullet. As the prophet says, Beruach piv yamit rasha. With the breath that comes out of his mouth as he speaks words of holiness, that will destroy all of the enemies of God. So really the war against Amalek that regular people like us are going to be fighting is not going to be with guns. Your knowledge or ownership of a mini war vessel is useless at the end of times in the war against Amalek. Because the war against Amalek is a spiritual war. The war against Amalek is an ideological war. The war against Amalek is a war that requires you to know more about identifying Amalek than you can possibly imagine. Because Amalek does not walk around with a t-shirt that says Amalek on it. And I'm sure there's going to be a few stupid people that buy a shirt that says Amalek on it. And I'm sure a few stupid people have already done it. But the vast majority of Amaleks are not going to do it. Why? Because many people that are Amalek don't necessarily look like what you would think Amalek looks like. Many people that are Amalek could look like a rabbi, could look like a priest, could look like a imam, could look like your neighbor, could look like your business partner, could even look like your wife or your husband. There's no specific look for Amalek. Why? Because Amalek is defined by spiritual status that is based on ideology. Whatever their ideology is, will create a certain level of spirituality. And that in itself will cause them to become Amalek. This is the reason why the same person can have one child that's righteous, like Yaakov, goes to yeshiva, learns Torah, very kind, very generous, very good character traits. And another son or daughter, that's Esav, that's Amalek, that's Lotan, that's Timna, all of these Reshaim that lived and brought the Amalek into the world today. The same parents can have one son this, one son that. In fact, the parent can be Amalek, but the son can be Yaakov, or vice versa. Because it has nothing to do with biology. It has nothing to do with DNA or cells. It's a spiritual status that's caused by an ideology. And therefore it says, Rav Elchonon Wasserman, if you want to fight and succeed in the war against Amalek, you must know how to identify them. But before you know how to identify them, you need to have the motivation, the proper motivation. Why? Because to identify Amalek requires an extraordinary amount of effort. No, it's not an effort of looking on the internet for endless hours until the wee hours. No, it's not looking under your garage door just to see maybe you'll find some Amalek with the roaches. No. It requires a commitment to the instruction set, a sacrifice. But in order to make such a commitment, a person has to have the right level of motivation. And therefore, Rav Elchonon Wasserman says, this entire ma'amar, this entire instruction set that I've given you, I have named it Omer Ani Ma'asai LaMelech. Why? Because David HaMelech was the ultimate example of what we need to follow in order to know not only who Amalek is, but also in order to have the motivation, because he had it. He had that motivation. Years ago, there was a tzaddik named Rav Yaakov Herman. There's a book, a famous book called All for the Boss, that his daughter wrote. And in there it talks about how this tzaddik that lived in America lived his life. And his daughter says that one day she saw her father come out of his study with really a face that was disheveled, shocked, like traumatized or affected in such a way. And the young girl thought it was weird that her father, who learns Torah, does mitzvot, does all good, but he had this face going on. So she asked him, Abba, what happened? What happened, Abba? He says to her, I tried my best to shed at least one tear, one pure tear for the boss. Because in his house, Rav Elchonon made it known that everything is for the boss, but not the boss at your company, not the boss that's the customer, not the boss that's the government, not the boss that's the community, but the boss, the one and only boss, the creator of the world. And he told his daughter that I wanted to shed at least one tear, one pure tear for the boss. How hard is it to cry? No. It's not hard to cry. It's not hard to pray. It's not hard to study. But why? What's your motivation to do it? You're crying because you want something. You're crying because of you. You're praying for you. You're learning for you. Everything we do is for ourselves. When was the last time that you prayed, that you studied, that you did a good deed just for the sake of the honor of God? That's it. Not to get acknowledged that you did a good deed. Not to let everybody know, oh, by the way, you know that I was the one that held that event over there. Yeah, we know we helped all those people over there. Yeah, I was behind it. Oh, you know, every year I volunteer at this non-profit organization. Oh, you didn't know? Oh, yeah, I do that. Yeah. Yeah, I'm nice like that. You know, I want to do good things. I want to do good things. Oh, you see the guy praying 20 minutes after everybody else. People are waiting for him. Is he really praying and glued to Hashem because he's so glued to Hashem? Or he's praying extra 20 minutes while he's thinking about groceries, thinking about his wife, thinking about that he's hungry. But he likes the fact that everybody knows that he's the one guy that prays 20 minutes extra. When was the last time that you did something purely for the honor of Hashem? When? David HaMelech says, Omer ani ma'asai lamelech. My work for the king. Meaning, everything that I do, it's only for Hashem. There is no me. There is no me. A person has to think how to bring more kvod Hashem, how to bring more honor to Hashem into this world, because if you don't bring any more honor to Hashem, the Gemara in Masechet Chagiga says, then what's the purpose of your life? Why do you exist? The Mishnah in Masechet Avot says the only reason why Kadosh Baruch Hu created the world is for His glory, for His honor. And of course, we've learned from that, and we've extrapolated many, many lessons from that in that series that we did on Pirkei Avot. Now is not the time to go into it. But the point being is that your existence is not for you to have another car or another house or another husband or another daughter or another whatever goat, whatever it is that is you want. The purpose of your existence is in order to honor God. The problem is that we're too addicted to honoring ourselves. And therefore, when a person hears the statement that David HaMelech says, Omer ani ma'asai lamelech, I say, my work is for the king, it seems a little odd. What is David HaMelech taking credit? He's looking for credit? He's looking for achievement? He's looking for recognition? Doesn't he know that every single mitzvah is going to be investigated like an etrog when people buy etrogim? Every time you pray and you fulfill that mitzvah, every time you give charity and you fulfill that mitzvah, every time you do a blessing before you eat or after you eat and you fulfill that mitzvah, every time you do a blessing after going to the bathroom, every time You do anything. Every one of those mitzvot is going to go up to heaven with you, and the Bet Din of heaven is going to say, wait, hold on a second. Let's look at this blessing mitzvah. And they're going to investigate this mitzvah like when people buy etrogim. When we buy etrog for Sukkot, what do? You look at it to see if there's any black marks, if there's any scratches, because that will make it null and void. Or at the very least, less valuable. If it's perfect, it could be $500, $1,000. But if it has one small black mark, if it's in the wrong place on top, the whole thing is worthless. You could eat it if you want. It's worth no more than a lemon. If it's somewhere else, it still lowers the price by 80, 90% in some cases. 50% if it's not completely black. It's like, a different discoloring, brownish a little bit. But that's what you do when you're buying a token. You know what you're doing. When we go up to Shemayim, the Bet Din of heaven is, hold on a second, before you, don't get your horses up over here. Relax. Have a seat. It's going to be a while. Judgment is 12 months. What's judgment is 12 months? We're going to analyze everything you've ever done over the next 12 months before you go to Gehenom, before you go to heaven, before Kafakela, before you go anywhere. We have to look at everything. Every single mitzvah you made. Forget about the sins. You made sins, they're not even looking at your mitzvot. You violated Shabbat, you haven't done tshuva for it, they're not even looking at your mitzvot yet. Until you pay for the sins, there is no mitzvot. The mitzvot only get calculated after a person has paid for their sins. And if the sins are big, unfortunately the mitzvot go to the garbage. You get rewarded for them in this world, which is in essence the equivalent of garbage in comparison to the next world. But once a person has finally arrived at the Bet Din of heaven, and tell them we're going to analyze everything you did. Every mitzvah, you bought an etrog, you bought a lulav, you gave tzedakah, you gave a compliment to your wife, your husband, your kids, you studied Torah. We're going to analyze everything. And they're going to look at it like an etrog. They say, wait, hold on a second. Look at this blessing. Look at this. Look at this black mark over here. And it's not a small dot like the etrog. Half the thing is black, because while you were doing the blessing, you were thinking about sports. You were thinking about your stock portfolio. You were thinking about some girl that you saw down the street. The whole thing is black. They're going to say to you, you're going to give this to the Melech? You're going to give this blessing to the Melech, to the King of Kings? This is what you're going to give to the Melech? This is your mitzvah? So of course David HaMelech, King David, knows all of this. So how could he say, Omer ani ma'asai lamelech, my work is for the king? How could he say it? If he didn't say it, we wouldn't ask. But if he said it, we're asking, but even more so. This is part of the Tanakh, which means that Akadosh Baruch Hu knows that everything that David HaMelech is saying here is 100% true. Or else it wouldn't be part of the Tanakh. The Torah says in Parashat Yitro, when it tells us the 10 Commandments, Ani Hashem Elokechem, I am God. I am Hashem, your God, that took you out of Egypt. This week's Parashat Kedoshim, says a man has to honor his mother and father, honor the Shabbat, observe the Shabbat. I am God. Ani Hashem. Well, obviously, we know you're Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu knows you're Hashem. Why does Hashem keep saying Ani Hashem, Ani Hashem? We know it's Hashem. We know it's Him. Why does He keep repeating it? Rashi HaKadosh says every single time HaKadosh Baruch Hu says Ani Hashem, he's telling us El Melech Ne'eman, I am the king that you can rely on, because I am God, the king that you can rely on. Everything that I said about reward and about punishment, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to reward the righteous and punish the wicked. And enod milvado, there's nothing else but me. So now David HaMelech, that he also says Ani. He also says Ani. Omer Ani ma'asai lamelech. But it's a different type of statement. The Baal Shem Tov, some say the story say it's about the Chozemi Lublin. But either way, one time had one of his students come to visit. And as they knock on the door, the rabbi asks, who's there? And a Talmid says, Ani, me. And the rabbi says, who's there? And the scholar says again, me. You know, sometimes people knock on your door and they assume that you know who they are, so they say, me. And sometimes you do know who they are because they're a family member, but sometimes you really don't know who me is. But in this case, the student said me, and the rabbi said who again, and the student said me, and the rabbi said who is it? And the student said it's me. And then the rabbi opened the door and told the student, before you ask me whatever you want to ask me, I need you to go sit in on a wedding. There's a wedding in such and such place at that particular city right now. I need you to go there right now. There's a wedding over there. Go sit in over there. The student doesn't ask why the rabbi wants him to go to some wedding. He just listens to what the rabbi says. He goes to the wedding. It's a very fancy wedding. He looks like he's very poor. Has a few holes in his pants. His shoes have, the hippopotamus mouth where they're pretty much ripped, so they open up. He doesn't look like he belongs in that wedding, but he sits in. All of a sudden, there's some commotion in the wedding. And they said that the fancy Kiddush cup that's been part of the family tradition for many, many generations is missing. A priceless possession. So they start looking around. Who could have taken it? Is there anybody here? They see it's all family members and friends who could have taken this cup. And then they see a new face. Who is this guy? Anybody know him? Who knows this poor guy? Everybody here is rich. Everybody here is doing good. And they go over him and they say to him, where's the cup? He says, I don't know what you're talking about. What cup? I just got here. He says, he's lying. He's hiding it. And they start beating him. Pach, pach, pach. He says, no, it's not me. And they hit him more. Pach, pach, pach. It's not me. Pach, 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 give us the cup. He said, it's not me. After that, he said, okay, fine, I guess it's not him. They let him go. He is full of blood, black eye, guy's limping. But what could he do? He goes back and he eventually gets himself back to the rabbi's house. He knocks on the door. The rabbi opens and he says, Rabbi, if I needed to get a beating, you could have just given it to me over here. Why'd you send me to that wedding? The Baal Shem Tov says to him, no, you don't understand. When you knocked on the door and you said me, you made a mistake. There is no such thing as me. There is no such thing as Ani. There's only Hashem. So when you said it 3 times, you had to fix 3 problems in your neshama. And that's why they had to beat you. So you can say, it's not me, it's not me, it's not me 3 times. Because the only one that says, Ani, is Hashem. Ani Hashem Elokechem. I am Hashem your God. There is no I. There's no me. So when David HaMelech says, Omer Ani Ma'asai LaMelech, I am saying that my work is for the king. Rav Wasserman is trying to tell us something. He says, you see, David HaMelech made a statement that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is signing off is, he's signing off that everything that David HaMelech said, everything that he wrote, that's actually how he felt. That was what was in his heart. The words that were in his mouth equaled the words that were in his heart. The words that he wrote equaled what was in his heart. And David HaMelech says, everything that I do is for the king. Why? Because when it comes to me, to myself, ani tolat velo ish. I myself, he says in Psalm number 22, verse 7, I am a worm and not a man. Scorn of humanity, chilpat adam, despised of the people. So when David HaMelech says that my work is for the king, he's saying to us that it's only because there is no I, there is no my in my life. Everything is for the King of Kings. And that's why the Gemara in Masechet Yerushalmi, in the Yerushalmi Masechet Sanhedrin, in the second Perek, says that when David HaMelech says, Shir leMa'alot leDavid, a song of ascent by David, David HaMelech is celebrating the honor of HaShem by saying, I did not even look up when people were praising me, when Shmuel put the Mashiach oil on me to make me a king. I didn't even look up to see who was saying, good job, wow, amazing. I didn't look up. I know it's all you. I didn't look up to see who's cheering for me when I killed Goliath. I didn't look up. Why? What difference does it make what these people are saying? Everything that I do, it's for HaShem. It has nothing to do with me. I'm a worm. I'm nothing. I'm zero. Nothing. I didn't look up when everyone was praising me that I returned the Aron HaKodesh. When I returned it, everyone was saying, wow, yay. I didn't look up. When his wife Michal was frowning upon him of how he was dancing in front of the Torah, David HaMelech says, it's my honor to make a fool of myself for the sake of the Torah. It's my honor. There is no limitations for what I will do for the Torah. And the Gemara says that Michal was punished severely for her attitude. She thought that it was not honorable for a king to dance like David HaMelech was dancing in the honor of a Torah. And she was punished severely for that type of attitude, even though overall she was righteous. David HaMelech says, all of the things that people are praising, they're praising, I don't even look at it. Why? Because everything that I do is only for the Melech. It's only for the king. But on the other hand, when you look at Psalm number 3, where it says, Mizmor le David, a psalm by David. David HaMelech is saying a psalm by David as he fled from Avshalom, his son. Oh, how numerous are my tormentors. Many say there's no salvation for me, as God left me. But HaShem, you are my shield, and the one who raises my head. David HaMelech says, when there's Shir Ma'alot, when I'm elevating, that's only because it's the king. It has nothing to do with me. When it has to do with me, it's only because I'm crying to HaShem that all of these people are trying to destroy me, but I'm hoping he'll help me, because I'm nothing. Anything good that I've done, it has nothing to do with me. It's all HaShem. It's all HaShem. To such an extent that David HaMelech says in Tehillim number 122, verse number 1, a song of ascent by David, I rejoiced when they said to me, let us go to the house of HaShem. The Gemara in Masechet Makot, page 10a, says David HaMelech is rejoicing, is happy, because Am Yisrael said, let's go to the house of Hashem. But what does that really mean? The Gemara says, David HaMelech had people come to his window. And constantly say, David, when is the Bet HaMikdash going to be built? Oh, it's when you die, right? So we're waiting for you to die so your son Shlomo can build the Bet HaMikdash? All right, we'll look forward to it. David HaMelech says, I know. They're looking forward for me to die. And it's not because they really want to go to the Bet HaMikdash. It's not because they want to bring sacrifices. They just want to make me angry. But I'm still happy, Hashem. You know why I'm happy? Because at least I'll go and be able to honor you. At least you'll have your house. And since my whole life is just for your sake, what difference does it make that they don't like me? What difference does it make that they betrayed me? What difference does it make that they simply do not know how to appreciate anything? What? You helped them get married and they don't care. You helped them have money and they don't care. You helped them get a shidduch and they don't care. You helped them convert and they don't care. You helped them with all of these different things. You helped them even not go to Gehenom and actually go to Gan Eden, and they don't care, to such an extent that they spend their time waiting for you to die. They spend their time talking against you. Oh, you see what he did? You see what he did? I don't like him anymore. What happened you don't like him? Wasn't he like your father for the last 5-10 years? Wasn't he like your pretty much everything for you? What happened? No, I don't like it. He started gossiping, started saying all types of things. What happened? What happened to, oh, you're the best. Oh, I love you. Oh, thank Hashem for you. What happened? David HaMelech says, no, I don't care about any of that. Let them hate me. Let them despise me. Let them even look forward for me to die, as long as HaKadosh Baruch Hu will have his honor. Why? Because I'm nothing. I'm nothing. It's all for Hashem. And therefore, Rabotai Karim, we learn the most valuable lesson in order to understand the series that we are entering as we speak. Rav Elchonon Wasserman says the most critical point that we must know as a result of everything that's happening right now and everything that we learned is having the proper motivation. The motivation of fighting against Amalek. It's because it's the honor of Hashem at stake. It's not for you to get rich. It's not for you to look righteous. It's not for you to be popular, to get views, for people to like you. It has nothing to do with that. Rav Elchonon teaches us an extraordinary lesson just by the title. Omer ani ma'asai lamelech. Everything that I do in my war against Amalek, it's only because it's Kvod Hashem at stake. It's for the sake of the honor of God. And that's it. It doesn't make a difference who likes it, dislikes it. It doesn't matter if it's profitable or generates a loss. It doesn't matter if anything that I say is acceptable or unacceptable. Why? Everything that we do for the sake of the honor of Hashem. Once we understand that and we accept it, then we'll be able to accept the holy words of the tzaddik, the kadosh, Rav Elchonon Wasserman. Thank you for learning with me this extensive but necessary introduction of all of the prerequisite tools for us to be able to learn how to fight against Amalek in the fight that already started. BeEzrat Hashem will continue going further and deeper into this next week together, as Rav Elchonon Wasserman gives us clear and precise instructions of how to fight and win the war of Amalek. Tiskulu mitzvot rabot. We will learn again, BeEzrat Hashem, tomorrow for a different series, the Stump the Rabbi series, where it's questions, answers, and BeEzrat HaShem, a lot of new insights. Kol Tov, Bracha v'Hatzlacha, and BeEzrat HaShem, Na'aseh v'Natzliach.
אני מברך את הרבנים, הרב ירון ראובן, הרב אפרים כחלון, ראשי ארגון בעזרת השם, שהלכו בפי עליון, שעלו מעלה מעלה, יהיה להם ברכה והצלחה, הקדוש ברוך הוא ימלא בישועות ליבם לטובה ולברכה, שבכל מה שיפנו ישכילו ויצליחו, יזכרו לעשות כאלה וכאלה, הודיעו תורה לאדירה, אמן ואמן.